He texted me, "Dad would have wanted you to give me the money," so I let a courtroom explain why Dad would have been ashamed of him. Opening the text. The Murphy bed was already folded up when the text came in. It was a Sunday evening in September, the kind of Phoenix evening where the heat finally decides to negotiate, still warm, but no longer hostile. I was on my couch, which was also my living room, which was also my dining room, which was also, technically, my office on the days I worked from home. 380 square feet teaches you to be efficient with definitions. I'd been living in this studio for 4 years. 4 years of folding the bed into the wall every morning so I had space to do yoga on the floor, because the alternative was doing yoga in the parking lot, and my neighbor Gerald parks crookedly and I didn't trust the sightlines. I was 34. I made $61,000 a year as a hospital billing coordinator. I was good at my job. I was organized in the way people who grew up with careful money learn to be organized. Spreadsheets, tracking, nothing approximate. For 3 years I had saved with the specific, patient intensity of someone who has a number in mind and intends to reach it. My number was $50,000. A down payment. A house. A kitchen that wasn't also a living room. I reached $51,000 in July of the previous year. In August, my brother asked to borrow $47,000. His name is Daniel. He's 37, 3 years older, project manager at a construction firm, $88,000 a year, good credit, good job, the kind of man who has always moved through the world with a certain assumption of forward motion. He came to my apartment in person, sat at my kitchen table, the small one wedged between the refrigerator and the wall, and explained his situation with the calm confidence of someone who already knows the answer is yes. He'd found a house in Scottsdale. 3-bedroom ranch, $371,000, good bones, motivated seller. He had $24,000 saved. He needed $47,000 more to clear the 20% threshold and avoid the PMI that would have added roughly $150 to his monthly payment. He said he'd pay me back in 3 years. He offered to put it in writing. I told him I didn't need it in writing. He was my brother. I'd known him for 34 years. I wired him $47,000 on a Tuesday morning. The memo line said, "Loan for down payment, to be repaid." I labeled it carefully because that's how I am. I didn't think, at the time, that I was building evidence. I thought I was being tidy. 14 months later, on that Sunday evening in September, my phone buzzed on the couch beside me. The text said, "Hey, I've been thinking about the money. I think we both know Dad would have wanted me to have it. It was basically a gift. I'm not going to be able to pay it back. I hope you understand." I read it 3 times. The first time, I thought I'd misread it. The second time, I understood I hadn't. The third time, I screenshotted it. Then I opened my notes app and typed 1 sentence, "Document everything." I didn't know yet that I had already done the most important thing. I had the text. I had 14 months of texts. I had emails. I had a wire transfer with a memo line. I had something I hadn't even thought about yet, a voicemail, sitting in my phone saved messages from 8 months earlier. My brother's voice, relaxed and unhurried, saying, "Hey, just calling about the loan. I know I said January, it's going to be more like March. I'll make it up to you." I didn't sleep much that night. I lay in the Murphy bed, which I had not folded up because it was Sunday evening and I wasn't doing yoga, and stared at the ceiling and thought about my father. My father worked 2 jobs for most of my childhood. Warehouse days, night security weekends. He never complained about it. He talked about it sometimes, matter-of-factly, the way people discuss weather, just a condition of the environment, not a grievance. He put 2 kids through the world with equal care, equal expectation, equal love. He died 4 years ago, lung cancer, 6 months from diagnosis to the end. He was 61. I thought about what he would have said about that text. I thought about it for a long time. In the morning, I called an attorney. Development. Building the case. Her name was Margaret. 51, civil litigation specialist, 24 years practicing in Phoenix. She had the specific quality of someone who has heard every version of every story. She listened without performance, without reassurance, just careful attention and occasional short questions. I sat in her office on a Monday morning and talked for 45 minutes. I had brought everything. The screenshots, the emails, the bank records, a printed timeline I'd made the previous night because I couldn't sleep and making timelines is what I do with unspent energy. She looked at the documentation for a long time. "This is one of the stronger informal loan cases I've seen," she said. He acknowledged the debt in writing 14 times. The wire transfer memo says, "Loan." He left you a voicemail discussing repayment timelines. She paused. The dad would have wanted argument is going to be interesting in court. I asked what this would cost. She explained, small claims court in Arizona caps at $3,500. That was a different conversation entirely. For $47,000, I needed civil court. Retainer was $4,500. If it settled, which most cases do, total fees would run $8,000 to $12,000. Trial would be $18,000 to $25,000. I had $4,000 left in savings. The other $47,000 was in my brother's house. I asked if she did payment plans. She looked at the file again. "I'll take $2,000 now and the rest from the judgment," she said. "Your documentation is that good." I paid her $2,000 and signed the retainer agreement on the same table where she'd been looking at my timeline. I felt, for the first time since the text, like I was moving forward rather than just absorbing impact. Daniel was served 3 weeks later. He hired an attorney within 2 weeks of service. I'll give him that, he moved quickly. His defense strategy clarified itself in the first filing, and it was, I have to admit, almost elegant in its audacity. The money was a gift, not a loan. Our father, deceased, had expressed wishes during his lifetime that Daniel, as the eldest son, as the one who had remained local, as the one who had helped with their parents in their final years, should receive preferential consideration in the distribution of family assets. My $47,000 transfer was my expression of honoring those wishes. It was a gift. It had always been a gift. I read this filing in Margaret's office. I was quiet for a moment. "My father never said that," I said. "My father treated us equally his entire life. He would be disgusted by this filing." Margaret said, "Say that on the stand." Exactly like that. Update 1. The pressure. The calls started the week after the filing. My mother called on a Saturday morning. She's 62, lives in Gilbert, still has the kitchen table where Daniel and I did homework as kids. She said she didn't understand why I was doing this. I explained. Carefully, fully, the same way I'd explained to Margaret. The loan, the 14 months of messages, the voicemail, the Sunday text. "Can't you just let it go?" she said. "For the family." I thought about what to say. I tried to find the version that would explain it without adding to her pain, and I couldn't find it, so I said the true version instead. He took $47,000 and texted me it was a gift. "I'm not letting it go." My mother cried. I listened to her cry and felt terrible and didn't change my mind. My aunt, my father's sister, 58, well-meaning in the unfocused way of people who prioritize the feeling of harmony over its actual existence, sent a long Facebook message about family unity and the importance of forgiveness and how my father would be heartbroken to see us like this. I read it once. I didn't respond. My brother's wife, her name is Christine, she's 35, and I always liked her, which made this particular call harder, called me once. Just once. She said, "You're going to destroy your relationship with your brother over money." I said, "He destroyed it over money. I'm just responding." She hung up. A coworker who'd heard some version of the situation, "Office buildings have permeable walls," said, "Family court stuff is so messy. Are you sure it's worth it?" I told her it was civil court, not family court, and yes, I was sure. The only person who didn't tell me to let it go was my best friend, Priya. She'd known me for 11 years. She heard the whole story on a phone call that started at 9 p.m. and ended after midnight, and when I finished she said, "Sue him. Get your money. Buy your house." I wrote that on a post-it note and stuck it to the Murphy bed frame. I looked at it every morning for 11 months. Update 2. The deposition. Month 6. There's a conference room in a law office on Camelback Road in Phoenix that I will remember for the rest of my life. It has gray carpet and a long table and a window that looks out at a parking garage. On a Tuesday in March, I sat on one side of that table for 3 hours and 40 minutes across from my brother. I hadn't spoken to him since the Sunday text. 8 months. He looked exactly the same. I don't know why I expected otherwise. He looked like my brother. He looked like the person who sat at my kitchen table and said he'd pay me back in 3 years and offered to put it in writing, and I said I didn't need it in writing. He looked like the person I'd known for 34 years. His attorney questioned me for 2 hours. She tried every angle on the gift theory, brought up our father, brought up family dynamics, brought up a birthday card I'd given Daniel 6 years ago that said, "Anything for you." She read that out loud. I waited for her to finish, and then I said that "anything for you" on a birthday card was a sentiment, not a promissory note, and I believed there was a meaningful legal distinction. Margaret had coached me for 4 hours. I used every minute of that coaching. Yes or no where possible. 3 sentences maximum when I needed more. Don't volunteer. Don't fill silence. Answer the question that was asked and stop. Then Margaret questioned Daniel. She started with the text messages. Read 14 of them into the record, one by one, each one containing some variant of, "When I pay you back," or "The $47,000 I owe you," or "I'm thinking $1,500 a month starting in January." Daniel's attorney objected twice. Got overruled twice. Then Margaret played the voicemail. His attorney objected. Got overruled. The voicemail played in the conference room, Daniel's voice, relaxed, casual, entirely unaware it was building a case against him. "Hey, just calling about the loan. I know I said January, it's going to be more like March. I'll make it up to you." Daniel looked at the table. I watched him look at the table while his own voice finished speaking. I was prepared for a lot of things in that moment. Anger, satisfaction, some form of vindication. What I felt was sadness. Just sadness. I thought about my father. I thought about how Daniel had taken a dead man and put words in his mouth for a legal filing, had dressed our father's memory up in an argument our father would have found shameful, and used it to try to keep $47,000 that wasn't his. My father worked 2 jobs for 20 years. He never asked anything from either of us except that we be decent people. I thought, you took even that from him. Daniel looked at the table until the room was quiet. Then he looked up. He didn't look at me. He looked at the wall above my head. We finished the deposition 90 minutes later. I drove home. I sat in my car in the parking lot of my apartment building for a while, and then I went inside and folded down the Murphy bed even though it was 4 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I lay down and stared at the ceiling. The post-it note was visible from there. Sue him. Get your money. Buy your house. 2 more updates to go. Update 3. The settlement. Month 9. Margaret called me on a Thursday afternoon. I was at my desk at work, billing codes on the screen, coffee going cold beside me. She said, "His attorney called. He wants to settle." I said nothing for a moment. "The voicemail," Margaret said, "combined with the 14 written acknowledgments. His attorney has apparently done the math, and the trial math doesn't look good." She paused. "He's offering $41,000. $6,000 short of the loan amount." His attorney was framing the difference as reflecting the contributed value of the gift component. A creative construction, legally speaking, a way of letting Daniel save a small amount of face by pretending the courts had partially agreed with him. "No," I said. Margaret countered, $47,000 plus my legal fees of $9,200. Total, $56,200. His attorney came back, $47,000 plus $6,000 in fees. Total, $53,000. Margaret called me. Recommended accepting. I thought about it for exactly 1 day. I accepted. The wire transfer landed on a Wednesday morning. I was sitting at my small kitchen table, the one that doubled as my desk and my dining room, watching my bank balance when it appeared. $53,000. My $47,000 plus $6,000 of his legal fees, which felt appropriate in a way I couldn't have articulated precisely but didn't need to. I sat there for a while. Then I opened Zillow. Update 4. The house. I had $53,000 from the settlement and $4,000 in remaining savings. $57,000 total. I qualified for an FHA loan, 3.5% down, first-time homebuyer program. At my target budget of $290,000, I needed roughly $10,150 for the down payment. I had $57,000. The constraint wasn't money. The constraint was finding the right house. I spent 6 weeks looking in Phoenix and the surrounding suburbs. I saw 19 properties. I developed a rubric: commute time, neighborhood stability, school district quality, even though I don't have children, because school districts are proxies for a dozen other things. I was organized about it. I was patient. I had learned, over the previous 9 months, that patience and documentation are the 2 most underrated tools available. On my 7th weekend of looking, I found it. 3-bedroom ranch in Chandler. A Phoenix suburb with quiet streets and good bones and 22 minutes from my office. Listed at $279,000. Previous owners had relocated for work, motivated, 31 days on market. The listing had a slightly resigned quality in the photos, like a house that had accepted it was available. I offered $271,000. They countered at $275,000. I accepted. The math. Down payment at 3.5%, $9,625. Closing costs, $5,100, with $3,000 in seller concessions I negotiated. Out of pocket to close, $11,725. Remaining from settlement, $45,275. I put $20,000 into a high-yield savings account as an emergency fund. Kept $25,275 for renovations and reserves. My monthly mortgage payment settled at $1,580, $390 more than the $1,190 I'd been paying for 380 square feet with a Murphy bed. For $390 more per month, I got 3 bedrooms, a real kitchen, a backyard, and a lemon tree. I closed on a Friday. The title company handed me the keys across a table, which felt anticlimactic and then immediately didn't, because I understood what I was holding. I drove to the house alone. I sat in the driveway for a while. I'm not sure how long, I wasn't timing it, and then I went inside. I walked through every room. 3 bedrooms. A bathroom and a half. A kitchen with actual counter space and cabinets that went all the way to the ceiling. I opened and closed the cabinets. There was no particular reason for this except that they were mine. I kept opening and closing them. I called Priya from the kitchen floor. She picked up on the second ring. I said, "I'm in my house." She said, "I told you." I said, "You told me." We stayed on the phone for 22 minutes. We didn't say much. It was enough. Update 5. The lemon tree. 3 months after I closed, I was scrolling Zillow on a Saturday morning out of habit. I still do this, probably always will. It's a compulsion that homeownership didn't cure, when a listing stopped me. A house in Chandler. I recognized the street name before I understood why. Then I understood why. It was my brother's street. His Scottsdale house hadn't survived his marriage. I'd heard through my mother, in one of our quiet Sunday calls, that he and Christine had separated 4 months after the settlement. The house was listed as part of the split, sold quickly. He was renting now, somewhere in Tempe. Christine had kept most of the furniture. The listing wasn't his old house. It was a house 2 doors down from his old house. Chandler, same zip code as me. Same street as the house he bought with my $47,000. I looked at it for 11 minutes. I know this because I later described it to Priya and she asked how long I'd thought about it and I said 11 minutes and she said that seems exactly right. I decided no. Not because I couldn't afford it. Because I didn't need it. I already won. Buying a house 2 doors down from where my brother used to live, the house he purchased with a loan he called a gift, would be a statement, and I didn't need to make statements anymore. I had a house. I had my money back plus $6,000 extra. I had a kitchen with cabinets I opened and closed for the pleasure of it. I closed Zillow. Made coffee. Went outside. The lemon tree was in the back left corner of the yard, against the block wall fence. I hadn't planted it. It was there when I bought the house, already established, maybe 10 years old. The previous owners had either loved it or ignored it. The tree appeared indifferent to which. It had lemons. It had a lot of lemons. I stood next to it in the morning sun. I thought about the Murphy bed. I thought about the Sunday text, the 3 times I read it, the screenshot. I thought about Margaret's conference room and the voicemail playing and Daniel looking at the table. I thought about the wire transfer landing on a Wednesday morning. I thought about driving here alone and sitting in the driveway and going inside and opening and closing the cabinets. I thought about my father. Not the father Daniel had invented for the filing. Not the one who had supposedly expressed wishes about eldest sons and preferential treatment, the convenient posthumous ally in a legal strategy. The real one. The man who worked 2 jobs and treated his children equally and would have found that filing shameful in a way that would have been quiet and total and permanent. I did what you would have wanted, I thought. I didn't let it go. I built something. I picked a lemon off the tree. Went inside. Made lemonade. You have to use a lot of sugar. The lemons are very tart. This is not a metaphor, or maybe it is, but either way it's true. You have to add more sugar than you think, and then you add a little more, and eventually it's right. Resolution. What remains? My mother and I talk on Sundays. We've established a careful silence around Daniel's name, not hostile silence, just the absence of a subject that causes pain without resolution. We talk about other things. We're finding our way back to each other through the space around what we don't say, and it's slow and it's real and I've decided what's left is enough. My aunt sends no more Facebook messages. Daniel doesn't contact me. I don't contact him. Somewhere in a Tempe rental he is living some version of his life and I have genuinely stopped needing to know what that version looks like. I think about him less than I expected to. I think about the lemon tree more. The financial picture, 18 months after closing. The house appraised at $308,000 at the end of last year, $33,000 above my purchase price, before you count the equity I'm building in the mortgage. The emergency fund has grown to $21,400 in the high-yield account. My monthly mortgage is $390 more than my old rent, and for that $390 I have 2 additional bedrooms, a backyard, a lemon tree, and no Murphy bed. I've been looking at a small condo in Phoenix as a potential rental property. The numbers are interesting. I'm not rushing. I have time. I have a foundation now, financial and otherwise, that I built from a betrayal and a voicemail and a post-it note and one friend who told me not to let it go. On the 1-year anniversary of closing, I made lemonade from the backyard tree. I sat in the yard in a lawn chair I bought myself for $47 at a Target sale. The price was coincidental, though I noted it, and thought about the year. I thought about the studio apartment. I thought about Daniel's text on a Sunday evening, the 3 times I read it. I thought about Margaret saying the documentation is that good. I thought about the voicemail playing in the deposition room and Daniel looking at the table and the sadness I felt that I hadn't expected. I thought about $53,000 arriving on a Wednesday morning. I thought about driving here alone, sitting in the driveway, going inside, opening and closing the cabinets for no reason except that they were mine. I thought about my father. I thought about what he'd worked for and what he'd stood for and the way Daniel had tried to use his memory as a legal argument, had put words in a dead man's mouth because dead men can't correct the record. I thought about how the voicemail corrected the record instead. My brother's own voice, relaxed and unguarded, talking about a loan he would later claim had never existed. The voicemail was enough. It was more than enough. I drank the lemonade. Very tart. I'd used enough sugar. The post-it note is still on the wall. Not on the Murphy bed. I don't have a Murphy bed anymore. It's on the wall in my actual bedroom, in my actual house, next to the window that looks out at the backyard and the lemon tree. Sue him. Get your money. Buy your house. I did all 3. I'm leaving the post-it up. Not as a reminder of him. As a reminder of her, Priya, who was the only person who didn't tell me to let it go. Who listened to the whole story and said 3 simple sentences and meant all of them. Every good thing that followed came from not letting it go. The $53,000. The house. The lemon tree. The lemonade that needs too much sugar and is somehow, every time, worth it. There's a spreadsheet open on my laptop right now about the condo in Phoenix. The numbers are interesting. I'm going to look at it this weekend. I've learned 2 things this past year that I carry forward into everything. The first, love is not a contract. A contract is a contract. This sounds cold. It isn't, it's clarifying. It means that love is something you offer and receive outside of transactions, and when someone collapses the 2 together, they corrupt both. Daniel didn't just take $47,000. He used my love as the mechanism of the taking. He counted on the fact that I loved him too much to ask for something in writing. He was right about that, and wrong about what would follow. The second, documentation is a form of self-respect. Every memo line, every saved voicemail, every screenshot, these were not acts of suspicion. They were acts of clarity. I labeled the wire transfer loan for down payment, to be repaid because that's what it was, and I am the kind of person who names things accurately. That habit, which I thought was just tidiness, turned out to be the thing that built my house. He texted me it was a gift. I had a voicemail. I had 14 text messages. I had a wire transfer labeled loan. I had Margaret, who looked at all of it and said, "Your documentation is that good." I had Priya, who said, "Sue him, get your money, buy your house." I had, in the backyard of a house in Chandler that is entirely mine, a lemon tree that was already there when I arrived, already bearing fruit, waiting for someone to make something from it. I'm not letting anything go anymore. I've learned what that costs. I've learned what holding on builds. Same lesson. Different direction. The spreadsheet is open. The numbers are interesting. I'm going to make lemonade first.